everybody, welcome to this month of Staffing Monthly. And I am really excited to stay on this theme of how are we getting more and better people into our agencies, into our recruiting funnels. And as you know, I've been scouring the globe, and I actually have somebody that is from the other side of the world from me. She is over in Japan. Her name is Samantha Sanders. She is actually a technical recruiter in the industry. So you're going to hear directly from an industry professional what she's doing differently. She's currently working with Mission Box as a technical recruiter. And more recent update, she actually partnered with Russ Leibowitz from Recruitemy to help him out with some of the technical recruiting and implementation of those programs. So, Samantha, I'm excited to have you here and sharing a little bit about some of your thoughts that you just put out that we'll get into. But thank you for being here with me today.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here. I'm glad I get to share some of my knowledge and, to kind of, just change some things up in the recruiting world, really.
Awesome. Well, that's fantastic. So there are some questions I want to ask you. I saw your post. Obviously, how we connected was essentially indirectly through Russ. You had made a comment on his post. I thought it was insightful. Checked out what you're doing. Quickly recognized you as an emerging thought leader in the staffing and recruiting space. I checked out your 5 steps to attract and hire top IT talent, but I felt like it was pretty good advice generally for recruiting any talent. And I wanted to dig into that. But before I do, just tell me really quickly, like, what is Mission Box? Like, what do you do there? Just so our audience can have a sense of the lens that you're going to be sharing knowledge through.
Yeah, so I am a full desk IT recruiter at Mission Box Solutions. It is a disabled veteran-owned startup recruiting firm, and I specialize in IT. I also kind of specialize in software development and cybersecurity. Those are the roles that I love to hire the most. They're just the most fun to me. And I created the book of the 5 steps to attracting and hiring top IT talent. It can be used for really any industry. I just made it for IT talent because that's what I do. Yeah.
Awesome. No, that's so cool. I absolutely love that. And so it's 5 steps. I read it. It's decent. I like your layout. I like your format. It's straightforward. But there are 2 steps that I want to focus on today. And if any of you want if you want to see the other, 3 steps and dig into that, you can download the ebook right on this page here. But last month, when I was talking to Lou Adler, he's just an amazing lifetime thought leader in this industry. But he said something profound about job descriptions. He was like, you have to actually just tell people what you need them to do, what you expect them to do. And I noticed that 2 of your 5 steps are about making the position attractive enough, right? To kind of, I'm guessing that's the attracting talent part. And the other one is actually like rewriting the boring job description. Those are steps 2 and 3. So I want to talk to you about specifically those 2 today. So when you're looking at these IT recs, and we can stay in that world because that's where you live. So when you're looking at these IT recs, how do you take something that is fairly technical, maybe boring, and actually make that position attractive enough? Like, what do you do to do that?
So it's actually funny that you mentioned Lou Adler because I had never even heard of him before I saw your issue. And I made this before that. Yeah. So I'm familiar with him, but I'm not actually familiar with his strategies, although I'd like to be. Yeah. So taking something what seems boring and super technical to making it exciting is not really as hard as it seems. So when we meet with the stakeholders for the company, when we're being hired, we actually do a deep dive with them and find out about the team and like, are there any rock stars on the team that, might be some friendly competition, or could they teach the new hire something? Or, like how long the team has been there and why they like being there, all about the culture for that. And then for the project, we really focus on the projects that they're going to be working on because that's where they're spending their most time. What we ask them, like, what's exciting about this project? Like, if you found me on the street what would make me stop? Like what's the outcome of the project? What makes it exciting? What kind of tech stack do they get to use? Anything that an engineer or software developer or similar would want to know, that would get excited by, because you gotta think they're a little bit of a different breed. It's not like just you and me, and what would make them stop? Is it something that they get to build and new projects all the time, or is it something to get to be creative with, or maybe it's somebody that just likes to maintain systems? Everybody has a different persona, and you're going to be picking somebody based on like, who is this a dream job for? We ask the hiring managers and the rest of the stakeholders that they know, because they already have a team built that is like that. Now, we're not trying to hire people that are the exact same as everybody else, but that persona for the project, for the team, that kind of work life is, it distinguishes them against, everybody else.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. And so you were talking about like tell them what tech stack they're going to be working on, and then you work to find the ideal candidate. So the one question that came to mind for me is, do you find that you attract better talent when the tech stack that they're going to be working on is something that they're completely proficient with? Or do you find you attract better talent when something within the tech stack might be a little bit of a new frontier for them, a new software, a new program, something that they are getting excited about learning? Like, where do you feel like maybe the best talent comes from in that scenario?
I think it can be both. It really just depends on what you're offering that candidate, that ideal candidate that you've created, what you're offering them with the project and such. Some people are more focused on, learning new tools to use, and that is very motivating for a lot of people. So somebody that is not familiar with that tool, or maybe only a little bit and wants to learn more, that could be a good one. It could also just be the project. How exciting is this project? What are you creating that is like, innovative, and it's gonna, break the barriers of, whatever. Like, it really kind of depends on the project, on like how you would do that. And that's
Okay.
why we meet with them and go over and do a deep dive, so that way we can really figure it out. And then we take those special key things and highlight those.
Got you. Now, in your ebook, you mentioned only tell them what they actually will use. That's a very specific statement. So why did that piece of advice make it into this book?
So I see a lot of job descriptions that kind of tell them like all of the different tools that they would like somebody to know, because maybe they're thinking about moving into that tech stack, or or they just want somebody that's like super experienced in everything. And just tell them like what they're going to use. So if you're going to use like JavaScript and like Node.js as the framework, like put that. Don't put like they need to know JavaScript and Node.js and all the other frameworks. Like they're not using all the other frameworks. There's no reason they need to know that.
So me, from putting a recruiting lens on that, I can see where that's valuable. So you're essentially, the more stuff that you put in there, you might actually screen people out and you could miss on your good candidate. So you're just saying, hey, look,
100%.
let's not be overly aspirational, especially in a tight labor market, is where you're going with that. Okay. Love it.
100%. Totally. That whole grocery list job description thing is not cutting it. And it screens out so many people, especially women. If women see just one thing that they do not think that they qualify for, they won't apply. And you
In-
probably lost your best candidate.
Interesting. Why do you think that is?
Because I think it's because women tend to be very self-critical. We are often the minority, especially in tech roles.
That's true.
And
That's true.
if we're not knowing all of it, then we're at a disadvantage. We feel that we're at a disadvantage. So then we just stay away from that and go to something else that we know that we have everything in. So that way we can be seen as an expert instead of not the expert.
Oof. Oof. So wow. So that's profound. That's actually so that's not in your ebook. That's actually that's an interesting so tech companies out there that are focusing on, diversity and inclusion and really all of that. And they're talking about and they're sponsoring programs to bring more women into tech and they're doing all of those things. There's really a little tweak that they could actually do with how they advertise their roles and how they describe their jobs that would actually be more inclusive, particularly in the tech side. If they just, wow, I think that's fantastic. And it's also a great segue into what was step 3 in your book, which is rewriting the boring job description. So talk to me about that. Like what frustrates you the most about the way that companies write their job descriptions and post those job descriptions today?
Oh gosh, don't
Let's
get me
get
started.
real. Let's get real. What do you
Okay,
see
don't
and
get
how
me
do you
started.
feel about it?
So they're so freaking boring. Okay. I'm just
Yes.
totally honest. They really are. Like, I hate applying for jobs because they have all these requirements for one, and I'm reading it and it's like a different language for something simple. Like, just for example, for a software developer, it's going to say all the time, it's going to say it needs to know HTML and CSS. Those are
Yeah.
basic languages in the
Yeah.
software world. Like, anybody in software knows that.
Right.
So you don't need to put that. It's highly unlikely that a waitress is going to apply for a software developer role. So I mean, saying they need to know HTML and CSS is like telling a waitress she needs to know how to read a menu. Like, it's just ridiculous. It's fluff. Take out all the freaking fluff and just put in the main things. Stop adding all this extra. There's not a competition of whose is the longest and has the most requirements. And make it about the candidate. I mean, you're selling your job. I have 60,000 other job descriptions to go through as a candidate. What about yours is going to make it stand out and make me stop scrolling? And even more so, what is going to make me want to apply? If it's
Right
not
on.
exciting, it's not happening. Attract candidates just like you're attracting your customers. It's just as important.
Okay. All right. So I like it. I like it. And I knew where you were at on that one with the how just awful most job descriptions and how people just copy and paste their job description and put it up on Indeed or whatever. But how do you rewrite it? How like give me an example and like I know you use the phrase make it drool worthy and you show some side by side comparisons in the ebook. So kind of walk me through, give me like the 2-minute overview down and dirty. How do I actually make my overly technical, boring job description not boring? So someone's going to stop the scroll and say, yo, I want to work here.
All right. So first things first, describe what they're actually going to do. Don't put what you would like them to do as an extra thing. You really have to evaluate what the hiring manager actually needs to have on that team to make the project successful. Not all the extra, like bells and whistles and wants. That's neither here or there. They can learn that. And then boast about the team and the project. Like, if I'm coming to work for you, I want to know about the team. I'm going to be spending all my time with them, even virtually, because a lot of IT jobs are virtual. I'm going to be spending all my time with them. If I don't like them, that's important. Like, I need to know
Yeah.
if I'm gonna like them, like what the culture's like. Is it competitive? Is it transparent? Is it friendly? Do they allow you to offer ideas? That's really important for a lot of people. Um,
So let me.
and
So I want to jump in on that, and I know you're on a trend here, but there's like I think in the tech world, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're the expert here, but in the tech world, tech people like teams that are high performing, right? Like they don't want to be contributing their work that might be at a certain level or a certain standard to a team that might not be as proficient or that might actually taint or diminish the work that they do, right?
Mhm.
Like that's a thing in the tech world. So they got to know the team. You got to boast about those team strengths, I would imagine, and the
Right.
contributors, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's why I said earlier, like, talk about if there's any rock stars on the team, if we're at a similar level, and I know that when you're interviewing me, I want to know, like, is this going to be something that I could be competitive with? Like, some people are competitive, and or is it going to be something that I'm going to have to pull a lot of my weight, and and somebody else gets credit. We ask the companies to be completely transparent about that, because every team and every company has issues, and we sometimes even put some of those issues in there because especially for like the project, you might be having trouble on something, and when a candidate reads that, they're like, oh, I could help with that. Like, I'd be like their saving grace. So
Interesting. Interesting. So sometimes instead of basically always just highlighting, making yourself kind of fronting and saying, oh, we're the best and we've got this all figured out and we're looking to add somebody, you're almost saying like, hey, we're on the brink of accomplishing something great, but the gap that we're facing or the challenge we're facing is just this problem. And we think, we need someone with these skills to help us get there. So you're thinking maybe that type of transparency and a little bit of vulnerability in the job ad might attract someone that says, wow, I can get them over the finish line. I could get them from where they're at to where they want to go. I I could see that attracting a more of a top performer than just a kind of a steady Eddie contributor.
totally, because I mean, none of us were born yesterday. Let's just be honest. Nobody's been to a company that didn't have issues, didn't have
Yeah.
issues with the team, didn't have issues with a project, the company in general. And I'm not saying focus on the issues. Definitely don't lie to me and tell me that there aren't any issues. And then when I find out you lied to me, then the candidate's not happy. But you know, talk a little bit about it, and kind of like be like, this is something that you could help us with. Um, because everybody knows that there's issues in anything. And sometimes, if you want to help with that, like, a lot of people want to help fix issues, make things better, especially as a developer. Their whole job is to find issues and make things better.
Yeah.
So why not highlight the team and then the project as well? What makes this project exciting? If you can't even tell me in an exciting way, and I can't figure it out just by you talking to me about it, like, how am I supposed to tell the candidates? And we help you with the job description and such, but if you can't even explain the project, you know you're kind of at a loss. So you got to figure out a way to tell me, like, what is something that a software developer would love about this project? What's something that they could help on, that is just that extra bit. you know
Yeah.
that's how it goes. And then you highlight that stuff, and that's what people eat up. And I've tested it and I've proven it.
I've seen that, and you've got some examples where you show your engagement levels that I've seen, which is amazing. So you really are doing something on LinkedIn that is it's fantastic. So I completely agree with that, and companies do struggle with creating job descriptions, and that's why they need recruiters like you in our industry to help bridge that gap to the talent. And I think one of the tips that I want to just share before we wrap up is that a lot of times companies, when they're in that situation, and I'm sure you do this, is that if they don't know really how to describe it, or they don't know why someone would want to work there, like just go ask your rock stars. Go ask your top talent, like, why do you choose to work here? What do you like best about this project? And take that information directly from them and weave that into the job description, because really that's you just need to attract more of them, of your top talent, right?
Totally. And we even tell them that when we meet with them, go talk to the team. And sometimes we'll talk to the team as well, just to make it easier on the hiring manager. But yeah, that's actually really good advice, because that's what we do. The team knows more than anybody. So why not ask the team? They're going to be spending their time with this new person too. So Why
It's
not?
it's true. And that's
And
actually
then,
the last piece I'll share on that one is it helps with retention because when your team feels like they're involved in building out their team and they have a little bit of a say or some influence over who joins that team, they're going to feel more involved, more engaged, more important, and they're going to buy in more and they're going to stick around longer.
right. And then when rewriting the job description, let I like to let them pre-screen themselves. And how you do that is you really just ask a couple of questions that's just like, do you, if it was like a Java developer and you required at least 5 years of Java development and maybe 3 years of agile software development, but you also want to see if maybe they know a couple of like other software programs, like maybe Jira, if they have experience doing that such with debugging and such. So you can ask them, like, do you have this much? Like, do you have this? Do you have this? And let them do it. Because first of all, you're going to pre-screen them majority of the time. And most of these candidates aren't even going to know if they make the requirements. So if they're doing that and they're saying yes to each one of them, I would say about 9 out of 10 times they're going to be a very qualified candidate. So they've already pre-screened themselves, and you're getting that high quality candidacy that you wouldn't get. You would just get a lot of these. You get some top talent, but you get a lot of people that you really don't want because they didn't even read through the job description because it's so long. So
That's true. And pre-screening I think is important, but you hit on something that's a bit of a pet peeve of mine. I think it's fairly arbitrary sometimes when we say you need 5 years of experience or this or 2 years of experience with this, especially with technology, how fast it moves. But like I heard this old adage one time that really stuck with me. Like, does somebody really have 5 years of experience or do they have 1 year experience repeated 4 times? So my question to you and maybe talking about some of the companies you work with, like, is there something magical about 5 years of experience? Is there an industry standard that says, hey, once someone has worked with this technology for 5 years, they've achieved some level of proficiency? Like, I feel like if I'm a hiring manager and I'm looking for top talent, like I'm actually going to want the person that actually got to proficiency in less time, right? Like, so like, is there really something magical about 5 years of experience, or can we just say, I don't care if you've got 5 years of experience or 50 years of experience. If you can get the job done, you can get the job done. Why do
right.
companies do this whole 5 years or minimum years of experience thing, in your opinion?
I mean, I understand why they do it because they think with more experience, for a lot of these, especially senior roles, which for senior roles, that can make sense. Because they need to be very, very proficient in not necessarily a specific program, but a specific programming language. Because it takes about a year to learn a programming language, and that's using it all the time. It's just like learning any other language. And then the frameworks and such, those each take about a month to learn. But honestly, I've been a manager everywhere I've been, and I didn't have any experience the first time. And a lot of the times I've pivoted and I didn't have any experience. So I really think that that's something that doesn't even need to be focused on. It needs to be, especially for tech, nowadays you can test their
Right.
skills, a tech assessment. So
That's what I'm
honestly,
saying.
like the amount of years doesn't even really matter. It's like, do you have experience in this? And then, can they pass the test? And how well did they do in the test? And then, decide from there. And I know that some tech assessment skill software charges the employer per person per time they take it.
Mhm.
So I can understand why they would want to have the years of experience on there because they don't want to be charged all this extra money for people that, aren't worth it to them. But there are some that can, do an unlimited amount. So I would say maybe find that. That way, you can test everybody. So
Okay. So I get it. And maybe it's the army in me, you train to standard, not to time, but what about having like pre-screeners that just say, hey, rate your proficiency in these key areas. If it's JavaScript, like how proficient at JavaScript are you? Like
mhm.
and let them rate and like And then maybe instead of saying, hey, I've got 5 years experience, let them tell you how they feel about their level of proficiency. And then I
Mhm.
think if you actually assess those people, and let's say they rate themselves a 9, right? And then they go take the assessment. If they come at, an 8, 9, or a 10 on the assessment, wow, this person's pretty self-aware, and the assessment validates that that's the level they're at. If they rate themselves a 9 and the assessment comes back and it's like, oh, this person's really only a 4 or a 5, like that's a self-awareness issue. So you're actually learning two things. You're learning how what are they you're actually three things. You're learning how self-aware are they with their own level of proficiency and skill set. Then you're learning what they really are at based on the assessment that you give. But even more importantly, you're actually learning how they define proficiency, which is it's a quality standard of good, right? And that's probably an
Mhm.
important mindset piece that you want to know about the people you're bringing into your organization. Is like, if they feel like what rates out of 4 or 5 is actually a 9 proficiency, do I really want them working on my tech project? Probably
Mhm.
not. So maybe I don't know. I'm not trying to reinvent the IT tech recruiting industry by any means, but maybe if the pre-screen was just letting them kind of rate their own proficiency and then do a gap analysis with the actual back end assessment. I don't know. Maybe
I
we just
mean,
thought,
it's an idea, but I think at the same time, like you said, a lot of people aren't really sure how to rate themselves. I mean, how do you really put a number on that? Like, is it by like how much, like I don't even know how you would put a number on that. So I would say like really, if you're going into tech and you're in like there's, if you're in any of them, really, you can do tech assessment skills for any of them. If you're going into tech and you're a candidate, go ahead and take a skills assessment test on your own. So that way you can upload it with your resume and they can see that. And then they can, and they'll probably test you again later because there is that thing. It is technology. People do cheat, unfortunately, but it's not really as common, I would say. They a lot of them have anti cheating software and stuff now. But at least that is an easier way for a candidate to be able to rate themselves because they've already taken a test and they can show you that. I think that would be a good
okay.
idea.
So that's fair. That's fair. As long as it can provide some quantifiable documentation, I think that's there. I think that's more quantitative and valuable than years of experience. That's just my opinion, especially with how
I
fast
agree.
technology goes and how quickly people learn. And just because I've seen people that have 20 years of experience that are absolutely amazing and I wouldn't trade them for anything. But honestly, I've seen people with 5 years of experience and 1 year of experience, and the person with one is the rock star. And that's who I want on the team. So it's people come in all kinds, all types of experience levels. So for me, it's about if I'm looking for top performers, like I don't know if that's a time standard. I think that's just a proficiency standard, right? That's just me. But
Right. I mean, I honestly, there's a thing about a talent is that usually a talent are not very nice. And I say that because they've done studies, and they've seen that they're not really that great of team players, because they start being in that section up here that, I know everything. And that's not to say it's everybody, but I would say that somebody that is a top A talent, um, they're not like they're up here and you have your B or C people down here, right? But their C people are very humble, they're followers and such like that. But your A talent are usually leaders. But a lot of times they can be aggressive. And that can also, if you have too many, that can also create a toxic work environment.
so
So you really have to think about, you don't want too many of these follower, C level people, but you also don't want too many of your A people either.
sure, yeah, and you should be mapping out your team and it's not even that one is more valuable than the other. Like every contributor to the organization, has a value of one, and that's it. Like everyone contributes to the organization. Everyone's role is important, but understanding the mix of people to move your project forward is definitely key. And I agree with that. So, but Samantha, listen, I am grateful for your time here. I know that on the other side of the world, you were probably ready to get on with your day. I know one thing we didn't share, which is an important thing. And from my background, I know how important this is, but your military spouse, so you were actually not even doing the world a massive service being a great recruiter for Mission Box, but you were just doing the world a great service by just kind of keeping things all in order on the home front. So I'm grateful for that, and I thank you for that. And I love what you're doing with Mission Box, helping out the military and veteran community, and really bringing that talent to the forefront, and getting that front line to the new front line of the tech world, I think is really cool. So I'm grateful that you were here with me and got to share some of your knowledge. For those of you out there listening, if you want to see the other 3 steps of this 5-step deal, just click on the book. You can click on the link, download the ebook, and check it out. You can see some good examples of the rewritten job description, and you can also follow Samantha. She's got some great thoughts that she's sharing, and she truly is an emerging thought leader in this industry. Grateful to have you here.
Well, thanks, Dan. It's been fun. I love, getting on with my little rant and, teaching people about, how to do things different, because I've been a job seeker. I know how hard it is. And it's, the hiring process is not really all that friendly to them. And that needs to change. So
I agree.